An empire is not built on stone and blood, but on the silent, forgotten virtues inherited from the dead. These forgotten virtues, they are the invisible bedrock. Without them, the ruling faculty simply crumbles under the crushing weight of absolute power. To forge a mind capable of bearing unnatural pressure, one must construct an internal fortress. We will examine the 5 unbreakable structural pillars of this architecture: the silent ancestors, the iron discipline, the illusion of the court, the burden of the crown, and finally, the debt to the divine. The silent ancestors, inheriting the baseline of virtue. Before the intellect can be forged by philosophy, the raw clay of character must be drawn from the bloodline. A ruler operates in an environment where external wealth, villas, gold, political alliances can vanish in an hour. They are entirely subject to the chaos of fortune. True inheritance, however, consists of the starting materials of life, the internalized, inherited temperaments and behavioral traits. Make no mistake, these are the only durable capital one possesses. It is an absolute truth that survival requires an internal baseline completely impervious to fate. Observe the sheer severity of this internal programming. From his grandfather, Verus, he inherited the government of his temper. For a Roman emperor wielding unchecked power, controlling anger isn't mere etiquette. It is the vital psychological safety valve that prevents the slaughter of thousands. From his father's reputation, a quiet, unpretentious modesty, a deliberate resistance to the loud, performative dominance of Rome. And from his mother, a profound psychological discipline, the abstinence not merely from evil deeds, but from involuntary evil thoughts. This right here is the absolute crux of cognitive mastery. The iron discipline, forging the ruling faculty. Bloodline provides the baseline, yes, but raw material must be hammered into an unbreakable inner fortress. And this requires brutal, rigorous mentorship. His early tutors imposed a strict, uncompromising asceticism. He was instructed to remain entirely objective, avoiding the volatile tribal loyalties of the green and blue factions at the circus. This was a critical lesson in cool, detached perspective against irrational socio-political mobs. From Diognetus, he learned the Grecian discipline of the plank bed and the animal skin. This was the premeditation of evils, a voluntary discomfort to ensure he never became a hostage to imperial luxury. He was also trained to completely ignore miracle workers and jugglers, grounding his decisions entirely in cold logic, devoid of the fatal vulnerability of superstition. The most vital mental framework was handed to him by his mentor, Rusticus, drawn directly from the writings of Epictetus, the dichotomy of control. The uncompromising doctrine that the universe is divided strictly into our internal judgments, which we command, and external circumstances, plague, war, the invasion of Germanic tribes, which we cannot control and simply must endure. Understand, this is not some theoretical exercise. It is the singular operating system required to face a collapsing world without collapsing internally. Consider this severe lesson from the philosopher Apollonius: to remain exactly the same in sharp pain or upon the death of a child. The uninitiated view this as robotic coldness. They are utterly mistaken. It is the supreme, unyielding steadiness of the ruling faculty. It is the absolute refusal to let tragedy dictate the destruction of the soul. The illusion of the court, penetrating the hypocrisy of tyrants. A mind forged in this manner must then learn to survive the epicenter of deceit. Through his rhetoric teacher, Fronto, the future emperor was taught to penetrate the toxic vanity and sycophancy of the elite patrician class. He clearly diagnosed the moral rot of the Roman aristocracy, men possessing immense wealth, yet consumed by envy, duplicity, and entirely deficient in paternal affection. Against this aristocratic hypocrisy, the true leader deploys quiet resistance. No performative displays of virtue, no desperate grasp for the public gaze. Just austere, private discipline. This state was perfectly modeled by his mentor Maximus. He displayed an effortless mastery. He did not show the visible friction of a man straining to be good or biting his tongue just to hold back anger. His discipline was internalized so deeply, it was as natural as breathing. He was a man who could not be diverted from the right, rather than a man who was visibly straining to be improved. The burden of the crown, the ultimate lesson from Antoninus Pius. Theory must eventually become practice. To wield absolute, unchecked power without losing one's soul requires a living blueprint. Traditional Roman leadership was built on gloria, a monstrous ego inflation driven by triumph, fame, and the relentless demands of the imperial cult. His predecessor, Antoninus Pius, utterly rejected this. He checked popular applause instantly. He managed the state's budget meticulously, enduring the bitter blame of the masses who desperately desired lavish games. He completely ignored the hollow phantom of reputation. Observe the mundane yet staggering actions of true command. He wore simple, locally made clothes. When an offending toll collector at Tusculum failed to recognize him, he simply forgave the man, where any other tyrant would have demanded crucifixion. He suffered from blinding headaches, yet the moment they passed, he didn't demand luxury or rest, he returned instantly to the administration of the empire. He utilized the gifts of fortune without a trace of arrogance. If a banquet was present, he ate. If it was not, he did not crave it. Absolute power is not an elevation above humanity. It is certainly not an escape hatch into consequence-free luxury. As demonstrated by Pius, the empire is strictly a massive, crushing, heavy obligation to the common good. It is, quite simply, doing the work of a human being. The debt to the divine. Gratitude to the unseen forces. We now pan the analytical lens outward, to the cosmic scale. A ruler must recognize his place within the vast architecture of existence. In the Stoic physics of the ancient world, the universe is governed by the logos, a rational, deterministic, and interconnected natural order. The emperor does not view himself as a self-made island of virtue. He recognizes that he is a dependent node inextricably linked within this vast network. His survival is owed entirely to the circumstances Providence has arranged. The self-awareness here is absolute. He thanks the unseen forces not just for his mentors, but for what did not happen. He is grateful that the cosmos never pushed him to a breaking point where his character would have failed. He notes that he never touched Benedicta or Theodotus, escaping the amatory passions without consequence. Remember, with unlimited power, nobody could say no to him. He acknowledges his own profound capacity for moral failure, realizing that his restraint was a grace granted by the universe, just as much as by his own iron discipline. And consider the context. This entire manuscript, this meticulous, rigorous exercise in ego reduction and profound gratitude, it was not drafted in a peaceful, sunlit garden in Rome. It was written in the freezing mud of a military camp at Carnuntum, right on the blood-soaked banks of the Danube, amidst the terror of the Antonine Plague and the unrelenting slaughter of the Marcomannic Wars. If an invincible mind is forged solely by the forgotten virtues it internalizes, what fragile external illusions are you using to build your empire?